Season 13 is finally here, and if you're like me, you've been grinding through this preseason questioning life itself as you see the players around you mentally boom one by one. Well, fear no more, because now it's time for everybody to actually start trying again. Well, let's hope so anyway. We're going to jump straight into it and see how our tier list looks going into the new Season 13. And as always, we're going to start off in that top lane. In the S tier, we have Singed, Shen, Fiora, Camille, Darius, Olaf, Dr. Mundo, Zac, and Akshan. Yes, you heard that correctly. Despite the nerfs, we're going to keep Fiora and Dr. Mundo in the S tier for now just because of how busted they've been recently, and we're not sure if these nerfs will displace them. Kassadin is also going to keep his place in the A tier, but if you're in those top elo brackets, he's currently S+. Let's see how those nerfs affect him too. Fiora has been ruling the top lane for quite some time now, and it's not too difficult to understand why. She has crazy 1v9 potential, she carries games from the side lane so often with her true damage and mobility, and as long as these nerfs don't hit her too hard, this probably isn't going to change that much. Dr. Mundo has just been unbelievably broken for a while now. This champion is just exceptionally overtuned. And not only does he tank and absorb a monstrous amount of damage, but he also deals so much damage himself, especially with Heartsteel. And people are really sleeping on Titanic Hydra on this champion. It makes him so hard to beat. Aatrox on the other hand does move down to the A tier. Despite being a terrifying champion to play against, especially when he gets fed, his stats aren't quite as ridiculous as Fiora's and Mundo's. We feel these nerfs may hit him a little harder and could see his performance go down a bit more than you might expect. He is one of those champions that when they pop off, you're never going to want to play against it again. But with these changes, this might not happen quite so often. Jax is getting a mid-scope update this patch, so you're going to need to expect a lot of people experimenting with it. We aren't going to change his tier placement at the moment because it's really hard to see how good he'll actually be until he hits those live servers. I'm sure next week in our update video we'll let you guys know just how strong or weak he might be. Sion's buffs bring him back up into the B tier. Now this champion is definitely a bit misunderstood. His win rate has been a bit shocking despite good Sion players making him seem completely broken. His win rate is likely skewed by all of those players trying to emulate those streamers online and failing miserably because yes, they may have 18 deaths, but they aren't nearly as impactful. Whether you play full tank Sion, full AD Sion, or a strange combination of the two, it does take a unique playstyle and mindset to pull him off in this way. But however you do decide to play him, these buffs will help him out. If you do want to know how to play Sion a bit better or any of the champions in this video, then click the link in the description to download our desktop app. This will provide everything you need to learn and master any champion that you want. From combos to guides and counters and matchups, whatever you want to improve on, you can find it with us. Moving on to the jungle now then, and in the God tier we have Maokai and Udit. In the S tier we have Ekko, Master Yi, Zac, Elise, Evelynn, Bel'Veth, Vi, Amumu and Fiddlesticks. Maokai is one of the highest performing champions in the game at the moment across multiple roles, but having most success in the jungle. And just like Udyr, he's not receiving any nerfs yet, so he's going to continue to be an absolute menace in solo queue with his insanely reliable ganks, massive crowd control, and his ability to tank a shed load of damage too. Shaco is getting some buffs this week too, and it's safe to say that he probably does need them. So although these buffs to his Q and his E are quite minor, they will help him out. There are a ton of players that love playing Shaco who'll be really happy to see him in the patch notes, but also a ton of players that aren't the biggest fans of playing against him. But that's always been the case, and it's in the nature of his stealthy jester playstyle. Either way though, we've moved Shaco up from B to A with these changes. Rammus has been another one of those junglers performing way too good recently, so he's had some nerfs this week to his base stats and his W. If you're like me, you've probably seen Rammus one-tricks dive into a team, press W and watch an entire enemy team one-shot themselves by right-clicking him. So yeah, you can understand where these nerfs are coming from. Rammus will still have his other strengths though, like his map mobility, his super strong ganks and his crazy crowd control, so you Rammus lovers should still be okay. No nerfs for Ekko, Elise, Zac or Evelynn this week either, which mean there's still going to be 4 of the best junglers you can play. They are all performing extremely well, and it kind of feels like cheating when you're playing them because of just how hard they are to actually beat. Be careful in those placement games guys, because these picks are still very scary. Over to the mid lane now then, and in the God tier we just have Kassadin. In the S tier we have Vex, Anivia, Akshan and Twitch. Karma makes a new appearance into the A tier after some seriously impressive results recently, and Zed moves down out of the S tier for the first time in quite a few months. Kassadin is only going to get even stronger with the buffs to his itemization options this season. He's been a very scary champion so far in preseason, he's been winning a ton of games, and he's going to win even more in 13.1. The quality of life changes to Kassadin at the end of season 12 made him far less punishing, and just so much smoother in general. His lane phase is much easier now, and he still scales into an absolute weapon in the late game, with his crazy high burst damage and mobility. Whether you play mid lane or not, Kassadin is one to watch out for. because even if you're carrying from whatever role you're playing, you might not be the answer to a Fed Casa win. Twisted Fate is finally getting some AP buffs, and hopefully this means he's come somewhat back into existence. He is a really fun champion to play and to have around in the meta, and it's a bit of a shame we haven't really seen him in the last year or so. These buffs are actually to his AP ratios on his W and the cooldown on his Q, so this may encourage players to lean more towards a mage build on him rather than the very unique rapid fire Everfrost pick potential setup. I still remember the old days of one-shotting people with the full AP Deathfire Grasp Lichbane TF, so if there's a chance that this kind of playstyle comes back, I'm all for it. We've popped Twisted Fate back into the B tier for the time being, and let's see how he works out. Another champion who's been underperforming for a while though is Lissandra, so going into the new season she's another champion getting some buffs. Her base HP, the slow on her Q, and her W's cooldown are all being buffed, so hopefully this should see her improve slightly. She's just one of those champions that you never really consider to be weak. She has insane CC, solid AoE damage, great wave clear, and her mobility's decent too. But despite all of this, she just doesn't win that many games. Even in those more favourable matchups, she's still struggling. We do think these changes will bring her more into contention and make her a bit more viable. I mean, there is a ton of mobility in the game now, and if there was a more reliable counter pick performing pretty well, it would make life easier. Let's move down to those AD carries now then, and in the S tier we have Kai'Sa, Twitch, Caitlyn, Samira and Draven. Not too many changes here again though, apart from a few nerfs to Zeri and a buff coming in for Xayah. Xayah's base attack speed and attack speed ratio are going up, and honestly I really hope this is just what Xayah needed. She is another really fun but struggling champion, and it'd be great if we could see a bit of a return for her in the meta. The issue with Xayah though is when she's been strong in the past she's been a bit too strong, especially if you remember the lethality summon area builds that were being played before. These buffs definitely encourage the more traditional Xayah setup based around crit and attack speed, so let's see if these changes are really what makes the difference for her. As a champion she has solid damage, great wave clear, and the ultimate is just so useful when you're stacked against a ton of assassins. So it'd be really nice to be able to pick her up more often. Varus is a super consistent pick at the moment from the bot lane, and there's still a large part of the player base that just don't understand how strong he actually is. He is very popular at High-ELO, and he's such a great answer to so many difficult matchups and team comps. He has his own form of crowd control and engage, which not many AD carries have, and his ability to one-shot squishies but also melt tanks is perfect for the meta we're in right now. AP Varus still isn't too bad either, but it's his AD on hit itemization build that is really popping off. So if you haven't tried him out properly for a while, here is your reminder to pick him up and give him a go. Samira is really scary at the moment, and she definitely goes through phases like this pretty often. If you get the right draft and matchup on this champion, it just feels so easy to dominate games with her, especially if you have the perfect support alongside you. Nautilus or Rell with Samira feels so broken, and as long as you don't get put behind, you can often just snowball your way to an easy dub. Playing against Samira is kind of like playing against a Yi or a Kassadin. If you don't have the tools or the CC to shut her down and she gets a bit too fed, it's probably going to be game over. So if you're an AD carry main and the draft looks good, don't sleep on Samira. Finally guys, let's take a look at those supports, and again there's just really not too much change here. In the S tier we have Janna, Soraka, Sona, Nami, Amumu, Zilean, Rell, Heimerdinger and Maokai. A combination of the best enchanters and the best engaging supports really, with some expected faces all round. If you're looking for an engaging, aggressive support to go for in the new season, you've got a variety of options. Maokai is easily the most reliable one to go for, with his point and click CC in his W and his Q and R to go along with it. If you're against low range lanes, you can completely destroy them by just getting on top of them and knocking them back into your AD carry. You just have to be a bit careful of the longer range lanes, as you may struggle to get on top of them without your flash available. Amumu is less reliable because of the skill shots on his Q, but he has more potential in a variety of lanes. His bandage tosses having 2 charges alongside how great his ultimate is means that if you can land those Q often, you're going to get really fed. Amumu also has incredible gank setup and fantastic AoE CC throughout games, so what's not to like? If you want a bit of a combination of the 2 champions though, you can go for Rell. Now Rell takes a bit more practice and also a bit more coordination with your AD carry. However, her potential and ceiling is just much higher. Rell has some pretty amazing stats and performances recently, so if you wanted to pick up someone new and haven't tried her yet in that support role, give her a go. In terms of enchanters, you have so much choice. The best of the bunch includes Soraka and Sona for your healing and sustain, Janna and Nami for your buffs, boost and protection, and then you've also got champions like Lulu and Renata Glask for your utility. There are so many options, all very strong and very viable, so you can't really go wrong. Pick whatever you feel is optimal, whatever you enjoy, and whatever you think is best alongside your AD carry. Remember though that now you can swap roles in champion select, it does mean you'll be picking bot lanes and supports more early, more often. So get used to learning which champions you can blind pick in season 13. We just also wanted to mention the nerfs to Yuumi, and despite her poor win rate, it just shows that Riot aren't happy with how this champion is performing. AP Yuumi has been destroying games for a while now, and even with those really poor stats, she still has one of the highest ban rates in the game. It's safe to say she's probably long overdue a big rework, because she's another one of those champions who just seems impossibly hard to balance. Make her weak and you're 4v5. Make her strong and she's unbeatable. That's going to bring us to the end of our tier list all about the new Season 13 patch. Don't forget to check out our website, download our app, and bring it with you into your next game. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one, and take care.